brute forcing is basically an attacker tries to guess the username or a password of a valid account. So it's more of a guesswork. So when it comes to web applications, what happens is that there are two things that are very majorly important in a web application. So it's like whenever you access a web application, probably you see the login page.
Yeah.
And now even if you are familiar with CTFs or Pentest, this is the first thing that comes around. And you might be thinking, hey, how do I get along or how do I bypass this login page? So one such technique that is mainly common in web applications is brute forcing. So it's like guessing, it's guesswork. But obviously, again, we are pen testers, so we are going to automate this stuff because all the time you're not trying to guess the credentials. So that is why burp suite comes. So again, moving on to the slide, I will introduce you to burp suite as well. You can see that it often works due to simple or commonly used passwords. And once inside the attackers, obviously, if an attacker is able to guess the username and password, he can actually get access to the application and carry out further exploitation techniques. So the real-time scenarios, let me just give you a brief introduction. The attacker guesses a password of an online account after multiple failed attempts by systematically trying combinations until succeeding. I think that was something that I just discussed a bit back. Secondly, a cyber criminal employs a dictionary attack against a popular social media platform, exploiting common passwords. Same thing again. Third one is something that is very really close to me and the security team as well. Yeah. So once we were dealing with a web application and we were trying a number of exploitation techniques, but all of us were in a deep confusion. What is the way around a login page? What is the actual way? So during the login, we could have a reset mail. And when we got the reset mail of the user account, it had a 6-digit OTP. So briefly, when I talked about this topic, it was more of guessing the username and password, but it's not actually all about the credentials. It can be something like OTP as well. And or these OTPs, they are 6-digit or 4-digit and 6-digit numbers. So even that can be brute forced. So moving on to a small example before we jump into the practicals, you can see, I will also give you a brief introduction to what we are going to do with burp suite as well. You can see that there's a login form in front of you. So let's say in this scenario, the attacker knows the username of the victim user, and that is Mike, and he enters a random password. So let's say test@123 or something. You intercept the login request. So what burp suite is basically doing, it's intercepting the login request, and you use a tool called as intruder. So can just let them know what intruder is?
So intruder is basically used for any type of to send multiple requests. Okay. So this process can be automated by scripting as well. But burp suite provides it like a common place in which we will be able to automate this stuff. So what typically happens in intruder is we can set the payload numbers, okay, and the payloads that we will be going to be sending to the web application, okay, and this process can be automated by using intruder.
Yeah, basically that the first point that I said, instead of manually trying different possible values, burp suite is just going to automate that stuff for you. Moving on to the intruder tool, what you do is you basically enter the random password and you are going to add a payload position around it. And next what you do is you move on to the payload section and you select an attack type. So there are a number of attack types that you can deal with, but major ones that I personally use are the snipers and the cluster bombs. So let me just give you a short introduction to it. So sniper is basically targeting one field at a time. So it's like the username, but you are trying to brute force the password. Cluster bomb on the other side, let's say you don't know the username nor the password. And then at that time you use the combination of random usernames as well as passwords to get into the login page of an application. Next, you find a word list. It's very simple. There are word lists. Internet, again, it has made it very easier for all of us. It has number of word lists available. So this is one of those word lists that you could use. I personally even use this one. So what you do is copy the password values from the word list. You set things up. You move on to the configuration tab. You set all of those values in the word list. And finally, you start the intruder and you like obviously you check the length tab, and now you can actually observe in the presentation as well. When the password was test, the length had changed. So and even if you move to the response section of the burp suit request, you can see that when the password entered was test, the server gave you a 200 OK response, which means that you are actually logged into the web application.
Yeah. How can you find out if like we have logged in or not? Like, is it based on some type of status code and content length?
Yes, exactly. So when you can see, even in this request, there were a number of payloads that you were automating or trying, like shadow, master, all of this. But they gave you a similar length, right? But when you actually logged in, there was a content length change, which means that, hey, something is there in the application which is giving me more of content. That would probably be when you're actually getting access to the web application. So you got a 200 OK response, and also there was a change in length. So that is how you just make sure that your brute force attempt was successful.
Yes.
And if you don't get any length changes, then probably your brute force attempt was really not. And you can always log back into the web application again. So using this password, if you want to cross check, but it's fine. Second, that is just what I told. So you can log in with the cracked credentials again, and you can see that you have successfully logged in into the account details. Yeah. So there are a number of tools that you could probably use for brute forcing. Like, can you name some of them?
Yeah. So like apart from the request response brute forcing, or using parameters to be brute forced, we can brute force the directories of a particular web application. There are multiple tools for that, the Buster and multiple tools. You can even pass it through curl request and automate by using a Python script and all. You can use wfast to send request response and automate that by capturing the particular request in a particular text file or a particular file, and then calling it during your wfast request.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before we move on to the practical section of this vulnerability, let me give you a small disclaimer. First of all of these things and all of these practicals and the content that is being shared with you in this video is completely for educational purposes. Please do not try this at your organization or at your place, because trying and performing all of these things without any instructions can get you in trouble, and Redfox Security holds no responsibility against it. Yep. So let's move on to the practical section. So you can see this is the burp suit that I was talking about, and we have our web application. But let me just introduce you to a small pen testing scenario as well before I move on. So whenever it's a pen test, mainly these labs were configured in a way that will deliver a real world pen test environment for you. This is because all of these examples are laid out with a foundation that will help you out in your pen test. So normally you will get a access file, and there will be a URL of the web application, and also there will be a normal user and an administrator user. Now we are talking about brute forcing, so we are not going to consider that we already know the password of one user, but I'm just going to walk you through the process.
So what you mean to say is, during a pen test, the clients actually provide the username and password for that particular for the users with different privileges, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so you are going to test this with that particular methodology in mind.
Yeah, exactly. Because again, we are pen testers, and I want more of you guys to get onto the real world side of things rather than having a vulnerable app, and that's what matters. So, and again, answering your question, it really depends on your client as well. It depends on the type of testing that you're doing: black box, white box, and gray box.
Yeah.
But usually 70% of the cases, you always get a user from the client. So let's first use that. Let's say you know the username again. The example. So what you do is, you know the username, and now you don't know the password. So you type a test password. You move to burp suit, again, the tools that always comes handy. You turn the intercept on, and you intercept this login request. Now, when you get to this page, you can see that there is a post login page with your username and your password. Now, what you do is you send this to intruder. You move to the intruder tab again. Scroll down. Just a sec. So what you do is you set a payload position around a randomly set password, that is test. Okay? And you add a payload position around it. You move to the payload sides of things. Now, so basically it's like you don't know the password.
Yeah.
And now you're going to automate stuff around this.
So this is taken like when we are trying to brute force the password, so we have to mention that particular parameter.
Yeah, exactly. So move to the payloads tab. Now what you could do is you can take the word list from the internet, which I had shown you in the slides as well, but I'm just gonna probably do a better thing right now. I mean, I just downloaded it on my local system and we copy certain values. Oh, my bad. And what you do is you move to intruder, you paste this, and then that's done. It's a simple list. Again, walking you through to the configuration a bit. It's a simple list. You have your values over here, and then you click start attack. There's nothing fancy configurations that you need to do here. Okay, so there was a tip that I gave you guys during the slides, and that was if you click on the len tab, which obviously even I do, it's more convenient. You can see that there was a len change when the password was QWERTY. And you can check the request. The username was Aaron, the password was QWERTY, and in the response you can see that you got the 200 OK response. Now what you can do is, again, cross-checking if you want to. I mean, you have to. So you move here and you say QWERTY, and I think you must be able to log in to the application. Oh, my bad, because I think I forgot to turn off intercept. Yeah. Yep, you are logged in. You can go to the profile section, and now you can see that you are actually logged in as Aaron. Yeah. So that is about brute forcing.
Yeah, so for this particular attack scenario, attack vector, what are the suggestions or the recommendations that you give typically?
Okay, so I mean the best ones are actually implementing rate limiting and user account lockout. So you did see in the intruder tab there were a number of requests that were made, but if the web application was configured enough in a good way, it could have just locked you out. Yeah. So this happens. A very common example is if you are accessing your bank applications and you enter a wrong password like once or twice, you probably get frustrated because of the account lockout, but that's actually a good mechanism. Secondly, implementing CAPTCHAs. It's also one way to go about it, and obviously you can't send multiple requests because again you have to verify those CAPTCHAs as well. Yeah. And the last, I think, is a very good method and always a great policy that is always followed in no matter you are in web applications or anywhere, is setting up a unique password with a good password policy. Okay. That is making sure that you use symbols and numbers, integers, a mixture of all of them.
Apart from that, if it is possible, do implement MFA as well. It is a security best practice to implement MFA in your applications which are critical.
Yeah, basically, and main thing why I really like that point is because even if I get the password, now I need to know the MFA. Yeah. So brute forcing is basically that really did not make any impact as such.
But MFA can be bypassed as well, right?
Yeah, but again, even if it's a OTP or a MFA, it can be bypassed, and you have to make sure these codes, the multi-factor authentication codes or your OTPs are actually, they are a mixture of integers as well as letters. So it's complicated. It's not as simple as a 6-digit integer.
Yeah, it depends in depth, like implementing each and every security mechanism to slow the attacker or the adversary down, right?
Yeah. But even I think the best practice is implementing rate limiting, is because even if it's MFA, even the attacker won't be able to guess it in
Right.
any way possible.
Yeah, the account will be locked out, right?
Yes.
Yeah.